B.Jenet, the captain of the Lillian Knights, is back at the helm, and she's looking more promising than ever, and with a few new tools to play with as well. B.Jenet is a very well-rounded character with a tool for basically every situation. She has fireballs, reflects, crazy overheads, and all sorts of air shenanigans from floats to air rekkas. Personally, I'm using her as anchor. She's a versatile character, but to me her damage and her options feel limited without meter. Having bar makes her a lot more threatening, as she has a lot of cool ways to burn meter and get damage. Let's start with her anti-airs. They are far A, far D. Far A is a good poke for her, and it's a good anti-air as well. It has solid range, and it's a far normal that's cancelable, which is always nice. It does have a weakness of whiffing against crouchers though. But in this case we're talking about anti-airs, and against hops especially, this is your best option. Far D is a bit riskier, but it hits a higher angle than far A, so it can help against full jumps. Now we covered these first as she doesn't have much regarding anti-air normals. Her main way to stop people from approaching from the air would be her jumping normals. You have jump A, jump B, and jump C. All of them have good hitboxes to stop people from jumping. Jump A and jump B cover similar angles. I'd say go with jump B more as it has more range. And then you have jump C, which is a good air-to-air, and it can work as a jump in as well, as it has 2 hits. Keep in mind that all 3 of these normals are cancelable into her air float and into her air super. If you're gonna do either of those, jump C is probably your best option, as it has the highest hit stun or block stun. And now her jump ins, and those are jump C and jump B. Both of these work as a jump in as well as an air-to-air. Jump C has 2 hits, and it can work really nicely as a jump in. Despite how the animation looks, it actually still hits crouchers if you do it late. And jump B is just a good normal to use as a poke from your hops, as an air-to-air, and as a jump in too, especially that it can also cross up. It's one of her most important normals. And then she has 2 more jump ins. Jump D, which is the MVP when it comes to starting offense and combos. It has a great angle as a jump in, and it can also cross up, but this is 100% an offense only normal, as it's the only one that you can't even cancel into her air options. And then the last one is her jump CD, and it's a good CD, it just looks weird as it looks more like a jump C than anything else. And this is also purely for offense. Next up is her pokes. First one is far A, which we already talked about, and then you have far C, crouch C, and her CD. Far C is her main poke. This has a good reach, good recovery, can kind of cover hops, and it's cancelable into specials. This is your main mid-range button. And to complement it, you have her CD, which has a bit more range, and you can whiff cancel from it to get more range on your specials. It does not have the same crazy hitbox from the older games, but it's still pretty good in this one. And then crouch C, which should mainly be an offensive poke, but being whiff cancelable in this game is what makes it very important. It actually gives your specials more range if you whiff cancel from it as opposed to her CD. So it's a good normal to throw out in the mid-range to test your opponent. Doing an empty crouch C or a crouch C into a special can be used as a mind game, sort of. And now we go into her specials. Her main special is probably her Krosuka back and punch. And this is a wind swipe that can be used in her offense, and it can help her against zoning as well. The light one is stationary, and her heavy one moves her a bit forward. Now you're technically minus after these moves, but they have enough pushback where it's really hard to punish them with anything. So unless some tech comes out that proves me wrong, just throw these out after your block string. It'll be fine. Now against zoning, the light one just cancels projectiles, which can be useful as you'll build meter and the opponent would not. And the heavy one is actually a projectile reflect, which is always nice to have. The EX version also reflects, but you don't need to do that as you can do that meterless. And instead, the EX version is used in combos as it causes a crumple. Now sadly, this does not combo from her lights, but it's a nice option to have anyway. This version is easily punishable, unlike the other two. This special in general can also be used to check hops, as it covers a pretty good height, and she recovers insanely fast. Especially that you can be deceptive with the range of the move when you cancel from crouch C, crouch D, or her CD, giving you 3 different ranges alongside the raw version. And then the next special is Krosuka forward and punch. This is her projectile, showing that SNK can do wind effects nicely if they wanted to, they just don't care about Joe. The light version is a multi-hitting version that has no range and has a lot of startup. This is mainly used in offense if you get your opponent to respect you where they won't hit buttons during your pressure. and the heavy version is a full screen traditional projectile. Well, kind of. It's still a ground fireball, so it's avoidable by a lot more things than the regular fireballs. But it's nice that in this game it goes full screen. So now you have an option to contest people from full screen. Just keep in mind that because she basically only has one version of her projectile, and hers is not one of those projectiles that have insanely fast recovery, so you need to be careful when throwing these out. The EX version is a bit faster, and it knocks back where you can combo off of it in the corner, but that's about it. It's mainly used as an anti-zoning tool. Yeah, nothing too crazy here, but it's nice to have a projectile. And now the next move is a weird one. This is her air float, and this is done with down and either kick button. This makes Jenet float in the air, and then once you press the kick button again, she goes into a series, a rekka basically, and it has 4 different attacks. This is the only thing you can do once you start the float. You can land and then do whatever normal moves you have, or you do her air rekkas. Now these are mainly for combos, but they're surprisingly effective as gimmicky block strings, mainly because you have a lot of time to delay them. Almost the entire time you're airborne, once you enter the float, you can start the first one and then delay in the second one and then the third one. And then you can do the fourth one, which can play mind games with your opponent because if they try to interrupt, they risk getting hit by the next rekka. And all of these are cancelable into her air super. Now, a big part of it is, depending on how late you connect these moves, on hit or on block, you can be very plus, which is easier said than done, because each float version goes in a different speed. So getting the proper timing to have the advantage once you land is not as easy as it seems, but it is doable. You cannot do either version off of a back jump. You can do them after a forward jump or after a neutral jump. The light one goes in an upwards arc, kind of like a rainbow. The heavy version goes in a diagonal downwards arc. The light version is pretty situational and overall pretty gimmicky. You won't be using this as much. You'll mainly be using the heavy version and the EX version, which is done with both kicks. And this one, unlike the regular two, you can do it off of back jumps as well. And it goes in an arc similar to the heavy one, but a bit more horizontal. Now the main thing here with the EX is that her kicks have a lot more hit stun and block stun, so being plus after the EX version is a lot easier. And if you do the full series off of the EX float, you can combo after it. Now technically you can combo off of the regular one too, but you need to do very specific combos and setups to get that to work. This is the move where Jenet can go from a pretty basic character into a very weird one that has a lot of execution heavy nonsense. You don't need to do any of this. Personally, I'm avoiding anything super finicky. The only time I'm using anything float related is when I'm doing the whole series. This is a move that depends on you. You can find goofy setups from it into plus frames, into more stuff, or you can just use it as combo filler and end with a super. It's up to you. And then the next move, Krosuka forward and kick. And this is a move where Jenet does a leaping knee and then goes into the air for more hits. Now, the light version, this is your go-to after light attacks, and you can also cancel it in the end into air super, and that's about it. This is not safe on block. And now the heavy version, this one is much slower, and it's a lot harder to combo into. The easiest way to go into it is the EX back fireball and punch after the crumple. And even though this is much harder to combo into and it's much slower, it's way more rewarding, as this is the only version you can break. And that's done with A plus B together, and it needs to be at a specific point. Now you can hold the A and B together as long as you have a ballpark of the proper timing for the break, and it will come out. But it's still a bit tricky. You'll need to know exactly when she's about to land, and that's when you hit the brake. When you do the brake, she does a small spin and she doesn't go into the air anymore. On block, this is still safe, as I've yet to find anything that punishes it. The important part here is on hit, as you can juggle off of it into a bunch of other things. The main thing you want to land here is her command normal, into whatever air stuff you want. It's a bit more limited mid-screen, but you can still get specials or supers pretty easily. And then the EX version, which is basically as fast as the light version, and it has a new feature where you can cancel, not with a brake, but after she goes into the air, you can do her float into the follow-ups to get more damage. And the important part here is that on startup, it has some upper body invincibility, so you can use this as an anti-air, which if it works is a very rewarding anti-air, as it can go into a lot of damage. But yeah, if you only have one bar and you want to go into a combo from lights, this is a move you go into. You go into the EX, into float, into whatever, and if you want to spend the extra bar, you go into the super. This should give you a bit of an idea of how B.Jenet has a lot of ways to spend meter if she wants to. And next we have her Krosuka back and kick. This is a flying overhead. Well, kind of, as the light version has a much smaller arc and is not an overhead. The heavy one is an overhead and has a crazy high arc, where if you cancel into it at all, a lot of times you will be overshooting your opponent and landing on the other side and eating a combo. But it does hit an overhead. The light version is a bit negative on block, but it has enough pushback that it's pretty safe. The heavy version is technically even. And then we go into the EX version, which if you've played against Terry since the game came out, yeah, this is basically EX crack shoot, which is always nice to have. And now we go into her supers. The first one, many torpedoes. Wow, I never knew that was the move's name. Anyway, this is a move where B.Jenet spins with many torpedoes, and it's a great combo ender. You can do the super on the ground and in the air. And the EX version obviously does more hits, and it has a bit of invincibility as well. And then her other super, Aurora, an uppercut style super, and this is B.Jenet's main reversal, or only reversal I should say. This is obviously insanely risky if they block or you miss, but it has actual invincibility, so it will beat whatever they're trying to do if you use it properly. The EX version has a lot more hits and has a bit more horizontal range. And then her Climax, okay, if it's done raw, it is a counter, and it will beat everything that's not a projectile or a throw. However, if you cancel into it from specials or supers, it goes into an actual kick animation and you can combo into it this way. So you can use it defensively and offensively. Overall, B.Jenet is a relatively straightforward character where she can use her normals to play the mid-range and then her specials to control the screen a bit. Then once she closes in, she goes for fundamental offense with sprinkles of air shenanigans and weird gimmicks to keep the opponent honest. She's a lot like Terry with a bit less explosive damage and a bit more aviation. Her main issue is that she lacks defensively as she only has her Aurora super to get people off of her. But otherwise, she has all the tools she needs to be a really good character. She has a few things that you need to get used to, but overall, she's on the easier side, with potential to get crazier if you want to get down the float nonsense. She'll need you to be a bit more solid in fundamentals to get the most out of her, but if you have that down, she is a great character that will reward you for your good play. And that should be it. Now, obviously, this is still a pretty new character, and I tried to get as much tech as I could, and as usual the rest of the video is going to be tips and extra info regarding the character's moves, and then a couple of combos to start you off. With B.Jenet, her combos can get pretty complex and weird. You can stick to pretty basic stuff and it works just fine. The finickiness of these combos is not worth it until you get really into the character. All these combos where you need to do one Rekka and then with the second one hit the third, do the juggle. I promise you that outside of style, these are not worth it. Just do the basic stuff into super and you'll be good to go. And that'll be it. See you guys in the next one. Peace!